Hey, what's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist, and today we're going to be doing an Ursarctic deck profile. So I'm really excited this week guys, because this deck is a super interesting synchro-based deck that actually synchro summons in a totally unique way. And it actually has the first ever level 1 synchro monster. So, without further ado guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell there so you can become part of the notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below for all those awesome rewards like getting your name in the description of every single video, getting a signed card sent in the mail, and even getting to request a deck profile every single month to your Patreon along with test hands. So without further ado, let's get straight on into this. So first off, we're going to be playing 3 copies of the Ursarctic Megapolar. This card is a really good card in the deck, and all of your main deck Ursarctic monsters share a similar effect. That during the main phase quick effect, you contribute one other level 7 or higher monster from your hand to special summon this card from your hand. And also, you cannot special summon monsters for the rest of the turn except monsters with levels. So all of your Ursarctic main deck monsters actually share that ability that you contribute a monster that's level 7 or higher and then special summon them to your side of the field, and then you get different effects depending on the ones that you summon. For Megapolar, it has the ability, if this card is special summoned, you can add an Ursarctic monster from your deck to your hand except another copy of itself, so you definitely have to play 3 copies of it because it is a really good searcher. We then play 3 copies of Ursarctic Mechatanus. Mechatanus has a really neat effect that if this card is special summoned, you can target an Ursarctic monster in your graveyard and add it back to your hand. So for example, if you tribute a monster to summon this card, you can actually add it right back to your hand, which is really good. We then play 3 copies of Ursarctic Mechabilis. This card is also pretty good because it has the ability, if this card is special summoned, you can special summon 1 Ursarctic monster from your hand. So it also gives you the ability to follow it out onto the field with an additional Ursarctic monster. We then play 3 copies of the Ursarctic Megapolar. This card is a really good card for the deck because it's a tuner monster that is a level 8. So the way that you actually synchro summon this deck is you actually synchro summon with the levels between the 2 monsters, not adding the levels together. So for example, if I have a level 7 and a level 8 monster on my side of the field, I can synchro summon for a level 1 monster instead of a level, say, 15 monster. It's the level between the 2 monsters. You're actually minusing the levels from one instead of actually synchro summoning, which is kind of like the way that they dark synchro summoned in the show. But this card is a really good card because if this card is special summoned while you control another Ursarctic monster, you can target a spell or trap your opponent controls and destroy it, which is a pretty good effect just to give you a pop on the field. We then play 3 copies of Ursarctic Megatanus. Megatanus has the ability that if this card is special summoned while you control another Ursarctic monster, you can target one face-up monster your opponent controls and change it to face-down defense position, which is pretty good. And the neat thing about all of your Ursarctic monsters is they do share the ability that during the main phase quick effect, you contribute them to summon them, so it's during either player's turn because they are quick effects. We then play 3 copies of the Ursarctic Megabilis. This card is really good too. That it has the ability, if this card is special summoned while you control another Ursarctic monster, you can target one card to your opponent's graveyard and banish it, which is a great effect just to be able to banish any card that you need from your opponent. We then play 3 copies of my personal tech for this deck, and that is 3 copies of Righty Driver. Righty Driver is really good for a synchro summon. You can substitute this card for any one Synchron tuner monster, and if this card is normal summoned, then you can special summon 1 Lefty Driver, which would play 2 copies of Lefty Driver in the deck, and the difference between their levels is 1, so you can actually use those monsters to synchro summon into your Polera to be able to go in for additional play. So I really like the Righty and the Lefty Drivers in here because it gives you an actual normal summon in the deck because all of your other monsters special summon themselves, and it's just really good to basically play 3 of every single Ursarctic monster, because I've actually dropped from the previous build where I was playing an Atlantean package in this deck. We then play for the last 3 monsters. We're playing 3 copies of Ash Blossom. These are here basically so that you can go in and stop your opponent from going into additional plays, and they help out a lot because it is going to stop your opponent from searching, because anytime your opponent touches the deck, you can send this card from your hand to the graveyard to be able to stop them from doing so. So that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get into the spells. So for the spells, we're going to be playing a single copy of Monster Reborn. Monster Reborn is here to help us extend our plays and go for additional synchro monsters, and even bring back synchro monsters from the graveyard to help us go in for additional monsters. We play 2 copies of the new card, Ursarctic Drytron. So this card is a really neat card. It has the ability to special summon an ultimate flagship Ursatron from your extra deck by banishing 1 Ursarctic Big Dipper and 1 Drytron Fafnir Fafnir from your hand or field, although you can banish one of them from the deck instead if an Ursarctic, Polera, or a Drytron Alpha Thubin is on the field. And if you attribute a monsters to activate an Ursarctic or a Drytron monster's effect, then you can banish this card from your grave instead, which is a really unique thing because the ultimate flagship is actually a fusion monster, and this card ties in both Ursarctic, the Space Bearers, and Drytron, the Space Dragons, into one archetype, which is really cool. We then play 3 copies of the Ursarctic Departure. Ursarctic Departure lets us discard a card to add 2 Ursarctic monsters from your deck to your hand. And if you attribute a monsters to activate an Ursarctic monster's effect, except the turn this card was sent to the graveyard, you can banish this card from your graveyard instead, which is a very helpful effect to be able to just immediately summon one to your side of the field by banishing this card. We then play 2 copies of Ursarctic Slider. I feel like 2 is fine. It lets you target one of your Ursarctic monsters that's banished or in your graveyard and special summon it, but it can't attack and also destroy it during the end phase. And for the rest of the turn after this card resolves, you cannot special summon monsters except monsters with levels. I really like this card as a 2 of in here. I have considered bumping it up to 3, but right now the Monster Reborn at 1, it totally works fine where you're playing 2 in 1. We then play 2 copies of the Ursarctic Big Dipper because this card is very easily searchable in this deck, and it has the ability to once per turn, if your Ursarctic monster would tribute a monster to activate its effect, you can banish a level 7 or higher Ursarctic monster from your graveyard instead, and then each time a monster is special summoned, you place a counter on this card, and then once per turn, if a monster is special summoned and an Ursarctic Synchro monster is on the field, then you can remove all counters from this card, minimum 7, and then target one monster opponent controls and take control of it, which is a pretty good effect just to get an opponent's monster. We then play 3 copies of the Drytron Fafnir. The reason I play 3 copies of Drytron Fafnir is because when this card is activated, you can add a Drytron spell or trap from your deck to your hand, which is actually the Ursarctic Drytron that you're going to be searching with this card all the time. It's pretty cool that you can actually search the fusion spell with one of the cards that you need to be able to use with this card. So if you do happen to draw into your copy of your Drytron Fafnir, you can activate it to grab this card from the deck. And if you have your Polera on your side of the field, while this card is on the field, you can actually banish either or of these from the deck to be able to summon that ultimate flagship, which is a pretty good boss monster for the deck. So that's it for the spells. Let's get into the traps. So for the traps, we're just playing a single copy of a Ursarctic Change. This card is a really good card as a 1-up to me. I did include it from the previous build. I wasn't playing it in the previous build, but I wanted to try it at 1. And I really liked it because it has the ability to once per turn pay 700 life points to activate one of these effects, to add any Ursarctic monster, even if it's face down, or you contribute 2 Ursarctic monsters to be able to, if you do special summon from your extra deck 1 Ursarctic monster with a different level equal to the difference of the levels of those monsters, ignoring its summoning conditions, or you get to add an Ursarctic monster from your graveyard to your hand, just giving you that a little bit of recovery, and it helps out a lot in certain situations, which is why I played it as a 1-up. So that's it for the main deck, guys. Let's get into the extra deck. So for the extra deck, we're going to be playing 3 copies of the Ursarctic Polera. This card is a great 3-of in the deck, and is one of the most unique cards I've ever seen in Yu-Gi-Oh! Because it is a level 1 Synchro monster, and everything in Yu-Gi-Oh! Teaches us that you have to add the levels together to actually Synchro summon. For example, 4 plus 4 is 8, and 7 plus 1 is 8. But this deck, it kind of functions a little bit differently, because it can't be Synchro summon. It must be special summoned from your extra deck by sending 2 monsters that you control with different levels of 1 to the graveyard, a tuner and a non-tuner. And if this card is special summoned, then you can activate the effect to add, or you can activate a Ursarctic Big Dipper directly from your deck, and you contribute a level 7 or higher monster, add to your hand, or special summon an Ursarctic monster from the graveyard, which is a really neat concept for this deck, because basically all of your monsters that are in the main deck that are the regular Ursarctic monsters are level 7, while all of your Ursarctic tuner monsters are level 8, which is a difference of level in 1, which is why it's so neat to combo this deck with your copies of your lefty and righty driver, because you can send these to the graveyard off a single normal summon and get this card directly out on your side of the field, because this is a level 1 and 2, the difference is 1, so you can go into your copy of your Polera, which is a really neat card to actually go into, because it's going to let you go into all sorts of different other boss monsters in this particular deck. And it also gets you your field spell. So for the other cards we're playing in the deck, we're playing 2 of this Ursarctic Synchro Monster. This card's really good as well because it can't be special summon, or cannot be Synchro Summon. It must be special summon from your extra deck by sending 2 2 monsters that you control with a difference of level of 7 to the graveyard, 1 level 8 or higher tuner, and 1 non-tuner Synchro Monster, which is always going to be your Polara that you're going to have to use to go into your other Ursarctic Synchro Monsters. And it negates the effects of all face-up monsters without levels that were special summoned from the extra deck. And if your opponent special summons a monster, then you can add an Ursarctic card from your deck to your hand, which is a pretty good effect just to give you additional plays. I then played 2 copies of the Ursarctic Grand Chariot. Grand Chariot is pretty good as well. It has the ability that cannot be synchro summon. It must be special summoned from your extra deck by sending 2 monsters that you control with different levels of 7, 1 level 8 or higher, tuner, and a non-tuner synchro monster to summon this card. And if this card is special summoned, then you get to target 2 other cards on the field and destroy them. And then once per turn, when a card effect is activated that targets an Ursarctic that you can control, you contribute 1 monster from your hand or field to negate the activation, which is pretty good to protect you from targeting. We then played 2 copies of the ultimate flagship, Ursarctic. Ursarctic is pretty good as a 2 of. I wanted to play test around with this, and I've really liked it as a 2 of in the deck because it's really easy to summon to your field. And this card must be special summoned with the Ursarctic Drytron, and it counts as an Ursarctic and a Drytron monster. And then once per turn, if another effect monster is special summoned to your field, except during the damage step, you can add an Ursarctic or a Drytron monster from your deck to your hand. And once per turn, you can target one of your banished Ursarctic or Drytron monsters and add that card back to your hand. So it's a really neat card to help you recur cards back to your field, and it's easy to summon just by using 2 field spells to actually fusion summon into this card, which is really unique. We then play a single copy of Access Code because it gives us additional pops in the deck, 1 copy of Unicorn to give us some spins, Phoenix to pop spells and traps, Cerberus to pop monsters, IP Masquerena to let us link summon during our opponent's turn, and because we are playing a couple of level 1 monsters in the deck, 1 copy of Linkuriboh just to make it so our opponent can't attack us, or they are going to have a monster that drops down to 0, which helps out the deck a lot because you can summon this card over and over and over again in this deck. So that's it for the deck, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. It's a really fun deck to play with, and it's a really unique synchro deck that doesn't actually synchro summon, which is kind of weird to say, but it's a fun deck. Like, I really love the way that it plays. It's a very unique deck, and I love the artwork of the cards. Basically, playing Space Bears is just hilarious, and I love the way that the cards actually function. So anyways, guys, this is DarkArmedDuelist. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell in there so you can become part of the notification squad, and we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.